Hi guys, Freddy here. Welcome back to another House Rules video. And in this one, we're going to be looking at skills. But this is going to be a bit of a shorter video because we kind of did a lot of the choosing of the system already. And it'd be pretty boring for me to sit here and choose out every single skill that I want to go into my game. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through character sheets for the same selection of games I covered last time, and how they handle skills. And then I'll take us on to the document, which is linked down below. I remembered last time. Excellent. Go me. And we shall see which ones I've selected and how we're going to handle them in this game that we're coming up with. So, starting off with 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. Now, Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition has a much stripped down skill list compared to 3rd edition. 3rd edition D&D was very heavily based around the skill system and had quite an extensive list of skills. However, 5th edition, they've stripped that right down. But due to the way the system works, there is still duplication in here, and some things which don't make a huge amount of sense. So, we've got, very first on the list, acrobatics, which is a dexterity skill, which makes sense because thieves and dexterous characters will be able to somersault across gaps and save their lives. However, strong characters, it only makes sense that they can jump over widening chasms as the dungeon crumbles around them. So, only the 4th on the list, we have athletics, which is a strength-related skill. But what's the difference between athletics and acrobatics? There's a lot of crossover with those two skills because they're kind of required by strong characters and dexterous characters, both being able to do similar types of things. It also leads to some problems. I'm playing an extremely dexterous character at the moment, and the Games Master keeps calling for athletics rolls, and I have a very low strength. So you would think a dexterous character would be able to do certain things, whereas mine can't because it fails because the DM's being extra strict. Now, they could have got around this by having an acrobatics or athletics skill which was crossed over, so dexterity / strength. But that's not how D&D handles it. There's also some oddities on the list. Things like nature, which is an intelligence skill. Now, that kind of makes sense. The smarter you are, the more you know about nature. But you've got to remember that the nature character classes, druids, rangers, are both built around wisdom. So they don't necessarily have the best ability at nature. You can get somebody who's very smart, a wizard of that, who knows more about nature than the ranger, who will be putting all of his attribute points elsewhere. Now, next up, we've got Vampire the Masquerade, and I was advised in my last video, the comments on that this is a Vampire 5th edition character sheet. Although it looks like an earlier edition, it's just made up to look like that. It is the latest version. Now, in Vampire, we've got the skills and attributes which you match up. So you're wanting to do a investigation, and the Games Master decides that's an intelligence thing, so you're adding your intelligence and your investigation together. Now, this is quite a flexible system. However, having this set list of skills, you notice there is nowhere else to write on random skills. Fails what I call the cookery test. Now, I spend a lot of time creating characters up for my website, rpggamer.org, for the Star Wars role-playing game. And I read up the backgrounds of various characters, tend to be background characters from the movies and TV series and that, and I try and flesh them out. Now, quite often, it'll mention so-and-so is a good chef, or so-and-so is an art historian, or so-and-so is a teacher. And these things don't tend to be covered in skill lists. Now, the Star Wars role-playing game, as we'll come on to, is very good at handling this. But in Vampire, if we decide that a character is a good cook, or the players are hiding out in a kitchen and they have to fit in, so they need to cook something. How do they do that? Well, is it crafting? Because we've got the craft skill over here. But that seems to be more about making plates and pots and crafting things, doing woodwork, than being able to cook a meal. Is it survival? So being able to hunt a rabbit and cook a 3-course meal are the same skill? What else we got? Etiquette? You're cooking something in polite society and doing etiquette? Performance? You're pretending and trying to be a cook that way? Occult? Is cooking an arcane mystery? Or is it science or a technology? None of these skills really seem to fit too well. So when you're trying to create a character who does something in specific, if there's no skill for them to do that, there's a problem. If I flick back to the D&D character sheet, we see that for cooking, well, again, it's probably survival. But it doesn't strike me that the survival skill is something which the chef in a lord's kitchen would have. So, while going back to Vampire again is a very flexible system, there's still gaps in it. Now, the Star Wars D6 system, which I GM a lot, and I've run a website for 20 years now, came up to the 20th anniversary of my website the other week there, and I like the way it's a very flexible system. Basically, every skill in the role-playing game is a suggested skill. So, while you might want to have blaster skill, there's lots of other things, because shooting a firearm will be different, so there's a firearm skill. Or you can have an energy weapon, because a sonic blaster, like used by the Genosians, isn't a blaster. And so on and so forth, and we end up with an absolutely massive list of skills. Now, lots of these are very specific. So we're looking at the technical skills here, so building, repairing type things. And we've got battle station engineering, battle station repair, battle station weapon engineering, battle station weapon repair. And we carry on through, where we've got capital ships, starfighters, space transports, musical instrument repair, starfighter repair, starship weapon engineering, starship weapon repair. We end up with an absolutely massive list of skills. Now, to a degree, I really like this, because it fixes my cooking problem. If I want to have somebody who's good at cooking, I just give them a cooking skill. If I want them to be really excellent at flower arranging, they can have a flower arranging skill. Now, having suggested skills to cover most situations, so athletics to jump over things, blaster skill to shoot things, dodge skill to dodge things, is entirely in there, while other skills can cover very specific situations. And Shadowrun. Well, Shadowrun handles skills in a very slightly different way to the other games we've just covered. Shadowrun has what's called skill groups. So we can see here we have acting skill group. And within that, we've got con, impersonation, and performance. Now, the way it handles that is, for a much higher cost, you can increase your acting skill group, and you will be good at everything within that. Con, impersonation, and performance are kind of specializations within that, although you can specialize those even further. But also, there's certain crossovers between those. So, if you're good at conning people, then by increasing your target numbers, you can do a performance, because you are just lying to a crowd. And we have various skills which don't come in groups, but we've got athletics, biotech, close combat, cracking, electronics, firearms, implements. And then we've got the more generic ones. So we've got archery, we've got free-falling, diving, animal handling, artisan. Now, that's an interesting way of handling it, that you can have these general skills. But essentially, these are the skills, and you're just having extra levels of specialization. So in Star Wars, which we just covered, you can have a blaster skill, but it can cost you less experience to enhance your blaster skill with a DL-44 heavy blaster pistol. And you can become far better with that specific weapon at a lower cost. Now, essentially, that's all Shadowrun's doing. You have the acting group, and for a lower cost, you can become good at conning within that. And conning police would be a specialization, and that would be even cheaper. So I do like it, but essentially it's doing what we've already seen before. I'm really only covering Call of Cthulhu because we covered it in the last video. Now, its skills are not related to the attributes, except in rare occasions. For example, dodge uses half of your dexterity attribute as its skill level. But most of the skills are totally unrelated. So you can have an intelligence skill, which is an intelligence attribute, which is high, but be really bad at accounting and get no bonuses to it because you've just never specialized in that, which is kind of realistic. Nobody can be expert in every area, although I do like the way that a smart person can get some influence in areas, especially with the vampire type system where we're crossing matching attributes with skills, so you can build it into your story that you're using your wits or your intelligence to be good at something. And last up out of the character sheets, we've got Star Trek Adventures. And this is an original series character sheet. But that makes no difference because skills do not change by era because there are no skills. In Star Trek Adventures, you've got these disciplines. And the disciplines are basically the department that your character works in. So we've got command, we've got con, we've got security, we've got engineering, we've got science, and we've got medicine. And basically when you're trying to do something, the Games Master determines which of these it comes closely into. So speaking to people will tend to be command. So when you are trying to hand out orders and tell people what to do and organize your crew, you're using the command discipline. But also when you are trying to con people, when you're trying to get a low price or cheat at cards or whatever, it's command. So all commanders are good liars. I'm not sure what that's saying about Starfleet aircrew. Also, security covers basically anything athletic. So all security officers, well, they're fit, so they can run, jump, they can fight, they can use phasers, they can sneak. They are inherently quiet. Also, engineering, science, and medicine seem to all border on one another. So you're trying to cure a disease, and that's medicine, but surely you could be analysing it using science, using your tricorders and the ship's sensors and things to determine what's making people ill. In any number of original series episodes, you would get Spock helping McCoy analyse things. And science and engineering, again, Spock would help Scotty with the engineering stuff. So the differences between these seem very slight. Of course, the Games Master can allow you to use different ones, if you can come up with the story reasons why. But, as I said, there's certain things which don't fit in there. Sneaking. There's no reason why sneaking could be an engineering or a science or a medicine skill role. I don't think you can make very good arguments for being command or con. It's always going to be security. Again, lying to somebody, conning them, it's always going to be command. You could come up with reasons why a security officer could be officious or intimidating, and that could duplicate command. But essentially, most of the things you do, they're going to be stuck into one of these. I like the flexibility in the system, which allows you to come up with story factors. So the player is explaining what they're doing and guiding it towards what their character is good at, which makes sense because your character will try and do what they're good at. But I do find some of these aspects to be a bit nebulous and hard to decide on. So moving across to the Google Doc, where we're keeping the notes for this. And I remembered last time, it was linked in the notes down below, and hopefully I've remembered this time. Now, the first change I've made to this is I was going through my old files, and I searched out the original notes I've made for this in a file dated the 10th of the 10th, 1995. So, some 27 years ago, when I came up with this original Hell on Earth idea, although the text file was called Demon Earth, is what I was going to call it back then. So I've copied this in as the original concept. Now, please forgive it because this was a much younger me. This was a 23, 24-year-old me writing down some ideas after watching a lot of manga. But I think it's interesting to put it in here and see where we develop, going back to the original concept I came up with. So, as the Mayan calendar predicted, the world ended in 2022. Well, there's my first mistake. The Mayan calendar predicted it was going to be 2012, as the terrible movie showed. But apparently I didn't know back then. Anyway, however, the end came when the planet was pulled into hell. Natural animals were twisted into monsters and demons. And demons stalked the planet. However, demons aren't invincible, and humanity has persevered, fighting off the worst of the monsters before a pact was eventually reached with the weaker demons. Spells would be cast to ward off the worst of the monsters from the cities, if the humanoid demons could shelter there. 60 years have passed, and the Alliance holds. Cities are sheltered refuges bred from kelp and seaweed farms. Trips between cities are rare, relying on hypersonic transports which are too fast for demons to catch, or heavily armoured wagon trains which fight their way across land. There are smaller settlements with their own wards, but these are rare groups of hardened fighters. Human technology helps them fight off demons, and plasma and laser weapons are common, as are cybernetics. Humanoid demons walk the streets of the cities, but aren't accepted in smaller settlements, although half-breeds sometimes allowed in, especially if they can pass as human. Players would be mercenaries, working for the highest bidder. Corporations still fight it out, even more so now, since they are only a power in their own city or country, and technological advances might change the careful balance that exists. National governments barely exist, only as alliances between cities, although humanity has come together more, as their differences seem slight compared to the hell outside. Players also could be hell cops, paid by city governments to keep the peace between humans and demons for the betterment of all, stopping true demons destroying the cities. They are sometimes invoked by worshippers in exchange for power, and worshippers can be human or even demon minions. And stopping humans picking on demons, which might threaten the Alliance, or finally stopping the demons using magic and their power to gain unlawful influence over humans. Players can be humans or half-breeds, but never true demons. They can be magicians or mundane. The style of game is extreme, so cyborgs are massive, powerful creatures, demons are weird-looking, and magicians robed and arcane. So that was the original concept. Now, as we've been discussing this, I've kind of gone on to more modern concepts, which seem more up to date. The idea of the good people being raptured away, so the only humans being left are fairly dodgy characters, people who are not good, or are flawed in some specific way. I also like the idea of there being weaker demons, which players could be, not just being half-breeds, but being weak demons who aren't that different from humans. If you think of the way Angel had its demons, various characters in that show were demons, which were humans with spiky bits. But anyway, that's what I've added to the starter file. We've kept the resolution system, the attributes, and I've listed a bunch of skills. But we will detail out how these work a bit better as we go on. I'll probably add that to the file in between these videos. So I've put in animal handling, athletics, brawling, computers, deception, intimidation, medicine, melee weapons, occult, performance, persuasion, piloting, ranged weapons, research, security, search, science, streetwise, sneaking, and survival. Now, they don't obviously cover everything, but I think they're a flexible bunch. I may realise I've missed things out, but things like knowing a bunch about animals, well, that can come under animal handling, or you could have a science skill in zoology, a specialisation. So I can see how these would be fairly flexible ones, but we shall see where that goes. I may end up deleting some of these or adding to them as I think through this more. Now, as we go on, I think we're going to get back into the more nitty-gritty parts of the system, because I think we need to know how combat works before we can get on to creating more world-related stuff like races, character classes, templates, however we decide to do characters themselves. We'll need to have an idea what combat works like and how health is going to progress. Because if we're going to do a level-based system like Dungeons and Dragons, then as you go up levels, you'll be getting hit points, and you would probably want damage to go up like that as well. Or are we going to have some kind of system based on resisting damage and having set amounts of health levels, like Shadowrun, like the World of Darkness, like the Star Wars D6 system? But we'll deal with those before we can go on to more creative parts of the game world. Anyway, I think I've whittled on for quite long enough, so thank you very much for watching. But as always, most of all, you look after yourselves, and I'll catch you later. Bye now.